Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to volume 2 of this morning's videos. Wanted to focus on teacher identity and talk a little bit about a few other things. Really quickly, the Socratic seminar, wanted to just address that. So I posted on the Blackboard Learning Materials the Socratic seminar prep sheet, and so you want to complete that prep sheet as much as possible to be able to be ready for next week. Now, the prep sheet asks that you really think about teacher stance, teacher presence, teacher identity, and teacher presence, and really think about all the readings and how they contribute to your understanding on those, and how so as you go through filling out that prep sheet, you'll really get yourself in good position for the discussion. But also, will serve as a really wonderful resource as you work on your midterm. So the actual Socratic itself is going to be great, and you guys are going to be awesome. We're going to divide the room in half, and so there'll be 2 discussions with about 8 people each. And the Socratic seminar, some of you have done it with me, most of you have, but if you haven't, essentially it is a text-based discussion where we share our thoughts and our analysis of the text. We construct understanding and meaning together, and we really listen well to one another, and we share airtime so everyone has a chance to talk. And what's really important is that we stay rooted in the text. We always want to come back to your evidence, so that folks will have all their resources. It is really important that everyone brings all their reading materials from the last, basically up to this point in the class, to the discussion. And you're going to bring a lot of energy and excitement and passion, and it's going to be an amazing conversation. So I'm excited about that. So the grade for it, the way it works is half of your grade is the discussion, half of the grade is the prep sheet. So you want to do a good job on both. And there's a rubric that you'll see on the directions for the Socratic. These are the directions I give to my middle school students, my high school students I've taught. So they're not confusing, they should be straightforward. And please review those beforehand, and we'll discuss them before we actually do the Socratic next week. With regard to the young adult book, so everyone, as I said, got their first choice. Congratulations. There's a nice range of interests that people have, so all the books will be represented, which is really what I was concerned about. I think instead of doing presentations, though, what we'll do is we'll have all the folks who read one book, like let's say we have 4 people who read the Alexi book, Sherman Alexie, about Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. So what they'll do is they'll sit up as a panel and they'll discuss the book and talk amongst themselves and also talk to us, and we'll have a chance to ask questions. And I think that would be a better format than the PowerPoint presentations. But I do want us in that panel to address some of the same questions and prompts that were in the direction. So I'll give you more information as we move ahead, but I think that would be a better way to share what we learned about those books. So I'm excited. I haven't done this before for this class, and so this is a new assignment, and I look forward to getting feedback from you on how it helped you really think about what adolescents are going through today, what they're dealing with, what is it going to be like to work with them, to teach from them, to think about the world from their perspective. All of those things I think this assignment has a chance to offer. Okay, so teacher identity. Teacher identity, Olson talks about it. The other reading you have for next week, Parker Palmer's piece, is a really well-known, he has a great book called Courage to Teach, and it's sort of a classic in teacher education. And they both are talking about your identity as teachers, and whether or not, for Parker Palmer, the focus is really on do we separate sort of a teacher identity versus who we are outside of the classroom, and some of the tensions that come there. And I think we'll discuss that piece more later on. But in terms of Olson, he's really interested in how our teacher identity shapes the lens through which we see ourselves, our students, our work, our teacher stance, which we'll talk more about, and our content area. So all of that gets informed by our identity. And our identity is the result of everything in the past, our apprenticeship of observation, our history as students, not just in terms of school, but also just our politics, our culture that we came up in, how our parents raised us. All of that very much informs our teacher identity. And then there's this moment now, right? So you have the all the different learnings in our classes that we have, all the different readings that you're coming across, what you're seeing when you go out to do your observations. So that's talked about sort of the wisdom of practice versus sort of theory and stuff like that. And all of those things are being informed, and you're wrestling with these things, which is what you're supposed to be doing. It doesn't mean the dissonance and means you're learning, so it's all good. But this is informed by the past and then what's happening in the moment, but that's not it. There's also who are you going to be as a teacher in the future. So you have a picture in your mind of the type of teacher you want to be, of who you're going to be as a teacher. And that, even unconsciously, shapes how you think about things and see things and experience things now, right? So that's a big force. That's a big influence on you. If you have a respect for this profession that is one that holds it in very high regard, that's different than somebody who's coming through a program, some accelerated program, so they can teach for a year or two and get that on their resume so they can go work at a corporation somewhere or at a law firm, right? That's a different way of thinking about who they're going to be as teachers in the future. And then the other piece is when you actually go into schools and start working and you become a teacher, and when you're doing student teaching, for sure. I know I was very much influenced by my student teaching experience, very much. You are going to have a new wave of information coming at you, and that is going to be in conversation with all the other waves, the past and what's happening now, who you'll be in the future. So all of these sort of dialogues are happening inside, and all of them are shaping your teacher identity. Okay, and some of the forces that will be present when you're student teaching and in your first couple of years of teaching is the other teachers you work with will be a big factor. The students that you engage with and come across and interact with and what you learn from them. And certainly the culture of the school. If you go to a school that has a particular type of culture and way of doing things and types of rules and regulations that are, let's say, maybe they're very authoritarian and all about discipline, that's really different in terms of shaping your teacher identity and what does it mean to be a teacher in that space than if you're in a school that maybe is super laid back and chill and they don't have rules and it's complete chaos everywhere, right? So we can think about how these shape our identity and our lens on the work of teaching. And so that's the teacher identity. It's our past, it's our present, it's our future. It's how we think about it, all in conversation with each other, that then forms the lens that we wear. This is my glasses. The lens through which we experience this work. Okay? And that's what Olson's really talking about. And I'd like you to really be reflective on that, because that's part of how we deal with our apprenticeship of observation, for example, and some of the struggles that we face in schools. I've often found that a lot of teachers, especially new teachers, are sometimes shocked that students don't have the same regard for teachers that they did when they were in school, right? And but of course they're not going to have the same regard. They didn't choose to become teachers in the future. So that's an example of the kind of thing that might be important to reflect on, and that allows us to empathize with students and to see them more clearly and to understand where they're coming from, and to then adjust what we're doing accordingly so that we can be most responsive to students and be fully present in the teacher presence sense of the word. So that was all from slide 25, and I think that's it. So for next week, you want to review the Sawyer article. That's going to really add to your teacher presence thinking. The Parker Palmer piece is going to add to your teacher identity thinking. And then the Fry text, chapters 8 through 10, deals with our teacher stance. Okay? And he defines teacher stance as essentially what we see our work as. Like, how do we come into our stance? Like, there's a physical stance. Like, what is our work? What is our charge? What are we there to do? And how we carry that each day? And that can be a positive or a negative. And then what do we think our students are capable of? So those sort of two things together shape our teacher stance. And so it certainly, all of these obviously overlap. And that's something that we'll discuss and think about in the Socratic. So I'm very excited about next week. And I'm excited that we managed to pull off this virtual class this week. You guys have been wonderful and patient, and I hope these lectures have been helpful. Thank you.